back to another edition of Components Breakdown. Today we're going to look at the newly released Fantasy Flight version of the game Dragonheart. Dragonheart is a two-player game that takes about 20 to 25 minutes to play. It is a fairly light family game that's played on a board with cards in a very similar style to a game called Lost Cities. So let's open up the game box, see what comes inside, and then explain the gameplay. Dragonheart is definitely one of those very simple filler games, so it's quite easy to learn, quite easy to teach newcomers, not a whole lot of components that ship with the game. Very similar, as I just mentioned, to a game like Lost Cities, where you have some cards and a board, and that's just about it. So looking at the first thing you get in the box is the rule book, and it is just 4 simple pages with plenty of examples for newcomers. There is a fold-out board, and it comes in 3 sections. And we'll explain what each of the areas on the board do. There's no kind of wording on the board, just pictures and area spaces. A very nice insert that ships with the game that holds the cards and the dragon figure. Now you'll notice with the cards there's plenty of space if you wish to sleeve your cards. The 2 decks that ship with the game are for the 2 players. One is red and one is green. They each have the same identical set of cards, just the backing is different. And they go through a plethora of different iconic characters in a fantasy world, and each of them have different number values which will act as the scoring points at the end of the game. Now, the only things that do not have scoring points are your ships, and we'll get into why as we explain the game. So that's what you'll be getting. Let's look at the gameplay. So we've placed all the game pieces now out on the table. Each player starts with their own deck of cards and starts off with 5 cards in their hand after the deck has been shuffled. Now the objective behind the game is that there is this great dragon, and this evil wizard has petrified the dragon, and as each of the players, one is going to play the evil wizard to try to keep him petrified, and the other as the valiant character to free the dragon. So not much of a storyline there. Basically it's a game of trick-taking. So we'll explain how that works. Now the game board is the most interesting parts of the game. On here you're going to find several iconic characters in the fantasy realm. You're going to see things like the Huntress, the Fire Dragon, ships, knights, sorcerers, trolls, dwarfs, and the petrified dragon upon which you place the small dragon token next to him. On each of these spaces, though, there are arrows and outlines to those cards. Now, all the spaces on here are going to match up with the cards that you have in your deck. For instance, this is for the petrified dragon. Now, on your turn, you're allowed to play to one of these areas, any number of cards that you have. So if you play to, for instance, a card with 1 outline, you're allowed to place as many fire dragons as you have in your hand on this space. And you simply place them face up. So if you have 1, you can place 1. If you have, 4 of them in your hand, you could place all 4 of them, but you're not allowed to place to any more than 1 space on the table. When you place specific cards, they may have specific actions that go off. For instance, if you have the fire dragon, you place 1 there, you can take any of the treasure cards that have been placed in a previous round, and you will take all of them. So if there are 3 or 4 treasure cards there, you will take all of those cards. Each of these that have 1 spot, which is the fire dragon, the sorceress, the treasure card, the knight, or the petrified dragon, and the troll, you can place as many to that spot as you so wish. The ones that have multiple spots on them, the last person to place one, for instance the troll, or the dwarf, gets to take that specific action. So each of the places have specific actions in the game. For instance, the 3rd person to place a huntress will get to take all of the cards that have been placed in the fire dragon spot and put it face down on their side, and that will act as their points. As you notice on all the cards, they all have point systems numbered on them. As I previously said, if you have the fire dragon, you get to take all the treasures. If you play 1 sorceress or X number sorceress, you either get to take the treasure cards that have been placed previously or all the petrified dragon cards that have been placed previously. If you place a petrified dragon, you get to take the dragon and place it on your side of the table, and it bumps your hand limit from 5 cards up to 6 cards. You'll have a 6th card to play around with if you were the last person to place in the petrified dragon spot. The Troll space will be able to gain all the cards on the Sorcerer space. The Knight space will be able to gather either all the cards on the Sorcerer space due to the arrows or all the cards on the Troll space. So as you can see, when people play cards, they'll be taking a benefit of something else that is previously on the table, and vice versa. The Dwarf one acts kind of uniquely in the fact that the fourth dwarf that's placed, that player takes all 4 of them and places them face down, and those will all act as scoring cards for him. Now, how the game ends, it ends in 2 different ways. The first way is if someone has drawn the last card from their deck and cannot draw anymore, that is their last turn, and the opposing player gets 1 final turn. And then you count up all of your points that you've collected as the game moves on. The other way the game ends is if there's 3 stacks of ships, then the game will end. Well, how did the ships work? A little bit different. When you placed your second knight, or you placed your third huntress, and it's either yours or a combination of another player's, the huntress and the knight will move down to this little spot off the board and placed here. Once a player places a third ship, they get all the cards that have been placed here, and they place those 3 ships up top of the board. Once that has been done 3 times, collecting all the knights and huntresses that have been collected here, the game will end. So those are the 2 ways the game ends. Very easy game to play. I try to explain it as best I can, but really once you play 1 round, the game just gets easier and easier to understand. But there is a lot of strategy in the game, such as when do I play specific cards? Do I hold on to a card knowing that I can grab that same card as a point the next turn, as long as, of course, they don't have something in their hand that can gather that same card. It's a fun little filler game. It really is. It's very easy to learn. Maybe the price is a little bit high, but I think it's every bit as good as a game like Lost Cities. Actually, it's a little more thematic than Lost Cities, which I tend to enjoy. Easy game to play. Easy game to learn. Nice filler. If you're into this kind of stuff, definitely go pick it up. And that is about as quick as you can go for a components review. Dragonheart.